Let's continue our sessions. Now, this next one is a trilogue, actually, and this one is titled as the Climate Change, How Can FinTech Help Secure Earth's Future and Pave the Road to Sustainable Future? So, a very relevant topic and very important one indeed. So, let me go ahead and get this one started. And to get it started, I'm going to invite to moderate this session Mr. Sambitosh Mohapatra, who's the leader for ESG and EU&R. PricewaterhouseCoopers Private Limited. If you could join us onto the stage to moderate the session. Give him an applause, ladies and gentlemen. Come on. Joining him on this panel is going to be Professor Seoyoung Kim, who's the Associate Professor of Finance and Business Analytics at the Santa Clara University. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you for joining us today. And along with her, we have Mr. J.A. Chowdary, Chairman, India Blockchain Standards Committee, who would be expressing his view during this trialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a round of applause while we go ahead and get this one started. 25 minutes, all yours, Sambitosh, over to you.
Thank you. Welcome, Seoyoung and Mr. Chowdary. Quite a contextual thing, right? So when I was entering this hall, I was hearing all about the challenges, and the challenges not only while we accentuate the climate change challenge, but it's all about asymmetry in wealth distribution. It's about disruption which is happening in business models, operations and supply chains. It's the age in countries like India which is going down significantly. It's the populism which is happening, where nationalism is coming to fore, and some of the conflicts that we see around the world, or the trust deficit, right? So we call it, and as a consultant, we try to framework it under what we call as an adapt. And then we say, to solve this, is there a solution that the organizations are structuring? And then we say that in a fractured world, where social, technology, and climate become so much important, can FinTech offer a solution, right? And brilliant. So what we have achieved in FinTech in India over the last 5 years has been phenomenal, with 21 unicorns, more than 2,100 FinTech companies in India. And when I looked at what is the FinTech, where to take the financial services to customers using technology innovation, how can it, for example, manage the ESG risks which are coming? So some of the risks which are coming are very clearly on three things I see FinTech addressing. One is the products and services that it puts out, which obviates the physical infrastructure, which means you reduce the carbon, right? So that's one. Second, because of FinTech, you generate a set of data and you enhance trust in the ecosystem, right? So therefore, that's the data and ratings which is becoming more and more important on ESG. And the third, where FinTech is enabling financial inclusion. So if I believe that these are the three large elements of FinTech, how it can solve the climate or ESG issues, what I'll try to do is, Seoyoung and Mr. Chowdary, I'll let you speak on your experiences for the first 7-8 minutes each, and then if there are any contextual question, I'll put it out, and then we'll open it up for audience questions in the last 5 minutes. That's the way we will structure it. So, Seoyoung, over to you on your first responses to this issue.
Sure. Thank you, Sam. I actually have a very brief slide deck with photos. I don't know if we can pop that up here. My first and foremost answer to your question about how FinTech can help climate change and future sustainability really has to do with economic sustainability through financial inclusion that's enabled by FinTech. And I see that we have some of the slide deck up here right now. Hopefully you all can see it. I mean, you see right here, PayTM, right? That's been a huge thing in terms of allowing economic stability through financial inclusion. I was actually here. I wonder if I'm using this properly.
Yeah, I think they moved it.
Yeah. Okay, so I was here in 2016 during Modi's demonetization. I was very confused and a lot of people were very angry. And people weren't getting paid, so they couldn't buy food. And if you can't buy food, if you can't feed your own children, how much are you going to care about future sustainability for all of your generations to come? So at the heart of everything really is, how is FinTech going to allow economic stability through financial inclusion? Now, if we look here, 2016 was also a pivotal year where we saw that early on, all of our internet access was through desktop computers. Now, fast forward to 2016, that's the first year that mobile phones, smartphones, right? They started to overtake the source of internet usage. And now, everywhere I go in India, no matter how rural it feels, everybody has a smartphone. Far more people today have access to the internet than they have to banking. So that's another area where FinTech, one of the biggest things FinTech has done in this last decade, was bring financial inclusion through mobile and smartphones. But now if we think about how dire this situation is, so look at 1985. For the longest time, the US was the predominant source of carbon emissions. Now, if we look here, look at the US, this right here is, I don't know if you all can see it, this right here is China. India is way at the bottom, right here, right? But if we adjust for the number of people in each of these countries, it looks even worse. And now fast forward 40 years later, the US has not increased its total carbon emissions, but the US has been wealthy. So these are 3 countries that have achieved greater economic mobility through carbon emissions. Now, if you're asking these countries to care, look at China now. So China is now at the top. And then we have the US, and then we have India. But if we look at the numbers, China and India have far more people than the US. And India, even though it's getting a lot more attention now for carbon emissions, India still doesn't have nearly as much carbon emission per capita as these other countries. But if you look at the economic stability that these countries have achieved through the use of carbon emissions, I don't know where I should even be pointing this to. Okay, here we go. So doing a comparison, we're seeing that through the use of carbon emissions, these particular countries have achieved economic wealth. Now, why is this a problem? We're all paying for it now, right? There have been far more floods recently. We had one in New York last year. We saw just this summer that China and then India, right? And now it's not just the top 3 emitters of carbon emissions. We have other countries that are now far worse off than India is. So India has also been able to attain far greater economic security and has far greater financial inclusion. But look at, other countries in Africa, right, who have far less carbon emissions and they're suffering for this. And if you look at countries, it's not just flooding, but we're also having famine from droughts. And so if you have half your people that are suffering this through no fault of their own, but through countries that have attained their economic stability through the use of carbon emissions, we really need to work a lot more on financial inclusion. Thank you.
So it's a great perspective, Seoyoung, for your perspective. So Mr. Chowdary, if you can bring it to life, some of the India stories, or the stories that you see around the world in terms of how FinTech or financial inclusion is driving some large afforestation kind of an exercises, that would be useful.
Thank you, Sam. Last 3 years, because of the pandemic, I was living in my village. I left all my technology-related businesses, and I became a farmer. I started doing organic farming. What I noticed in the last 3 years, I'll tell you 3 examples where I actually witnessed how climate change and FinTech they have really changed the landscape in India. One day I went to a temple, local temple in my village. When I was coming out of the temple, a lot of beggars they came and they were asking for money. When I looked at my purse, I was having only 500 rupee notes. I said, I don't have change, and I was walking. And one beggar, this happened in a small village, and one beggar, sir, do you have Google Pay? I was really stunned. I mean, in a rural place, a beggar having a smartphone, and I was not having Google Pay at that point of time. I said, sorry, I don't have a Google Pay. So look at the FinTech adoption or digital adoption in the country. That is example number one. Then I visited recently in Hyderabad. Hyderabad, every week there is a farmer market. All the farmers nearby, they come and they actually start selling whatever the vegetables and other fruits and all that. And I noticed that every farmer in their whatever small kind of a mobile shop, what they have, and there is a QR code. Every farmer is able to receive the money through digital, through the QR code. And this is earlier, I know that being a farmer, I know most of the farmers, all the transactions used to happen cash. And they never had any bank accounts before Jan Dhan program of Government of India. They were not even having a bank account. Today, they have mobile bank account. They use the digital payment infrastructure in such a seamless way. Even the urbanites, they are not able to use. That is the example number 3. The third example also very, very relevant how this climate change and FinTech is happening. One of my farm worker, she used to study, I think, 10th grade when I went to the village. And since anyway, I was not having enough work in my village, I started small Gurukul. And this girl was also part of that Gurukul. And I used to tell her, go to this YouTube, you can learn all these things. So one day, she came to me, since I am the India Blockchain Standards Committee Chairman, I used to talk on blockchain related things in some of the webinars. And she was listening to my lectures. And one day she came to me, Tata, I wanted to give a presentation to you on blockchain technology. I said, even BTech people are not able to understand what is black chain, blue chain, or white chain. How do you think no, I understood what you were talking, and I will give a presentation. After 1 week, she gave a fantastic presentation about blockchain and its application. And that girl, today she got admission in Cornell University with full scholarship. She also got admission in MIT, but there is not a full scholarship. How she was able to get all these things? Because she used the crowdsourcing. Whenever she doesn't have money, she had the ability to put her case in the crowdsourcing, and some donors came and they helped her sending that money, and with that money she was able to get some training and all that this thing, and she applied for SAT training. That also through crowdsourcing, she got the training fee and all that. And today she got the admission. She is going next week to US to join undergrad in the Cornell University. And that is a kind of a climate change the FinTech has really brought in this country. I don't think any other country has got this kind of a robust digital infrastructure through Aadhaar, through UPI and all that, whatever we have. Because of that, the entire country, not just in the urban areas, entire country is digitally connected. They are using more digital instruments than actually technology people. That's one point. Another company where I invested in their company called Lifecycle. It's a startup FinTech company. What they are doing, they came out with a gamified IPL leagues. See, today what happened in the pandemic period, all the employees, they are not working in the offices. They are working in their homes and all that. They are not, they are physically connected. That emotional bonding is not there. So he came out with a product to bond them. I mean, though they are in different places, different cities, different villages, and through the app, he was able to enable them to go for a walk, to participate in a hackathon, participate in a marathon, participate in a cyclothon and all that this thing. So in that app, what he's doing is, how to reduce the carbon emission. Suppose in a company, if there are 500 people, they all participate in a cycling event or this thing. Based on how many kilometers they have, this thing, it calculates automatically what is the CO2 it has reduced. Based on that, the company, the CSR fund, suppose the company has got CSR fund, based on that, they send that money to an NGO who are supporting the afforestation. They are going to grow the plants in nearby colonies, and also they will maintain all that. And this employee is getting a certificate that thank you, your participation enabled n number of trees to be grown in the nearby with the photographs and geo coordinates and all that. That's another example which I have seen how the fintech is helping the increasing the green cover through this kind of innovative fintech ideas. And all of you are aware, in Amazon, which is the rainforest, they were all getting, I mean, most of the trees were removed and all that, this thing. Recently, somebody came with a bright idea. They created a company called Mass Amazon NFT. Now they are selling they bought about 100 hectares of forest land in Amazon rainforest, and they are actually selling the tokens, Amazon NFT tokens. By selling the tokens, whatever the proceeds they get, portion of that they're able to actually, through the satellites and all that, this thing, they're able to maintain those trees and make sure that, suppose I bought some X number of NFT tokens from that company, I can see how many trees I own and whether they're maintaining the trees or all those things are happening. With this, they're able to really increase the forest cover and see that, I mean, some green cover is increasing. All these things are happening through the technology, particularly through the fintech. I'm very happy to see that the so-called pandemic, actually it is changing the climate in a positive way. And through the technology, I think we are going to have more trees and more green cover, more oxygen-rich places will be there. I'm very optimistic that the whole world will be positively energized through the technology, particularly through fintech. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdary. See, over the last 18 months, I think what we have also seen is this whole sustainability, and Indian regulators and policy makers have also pushed ahead on reporting formats. So, Seoyoung, I just wanted to reach out to you and understand what's happening elsewhere, because in India, the fintech companies, the relevance of it is established, right? So the great work that they do. But the pressure is back on the bottom line. Most of the fintech companies today, because they don't have access to innovative financing mechanisms, and they're still leveraging the traditional finance, their bottom lines are getting stuck. So if something they are doing sustainably well, we have heard in the Western world, the market rewards them in terms of valuation. Like that we have seen in India also, right? Be it valuation, be it brand, be it reputation, be it access to new geographies, customers, price points, or lowering the cost to serve, or talent, all of that. The issue is these are all long-term in nature. The fear which most of the investors have is that sustainability is a 5-year, 8-year, 10-year kind of a journey, right? When the value is created. But today, it is a drag on the bottom line. And that's what is prohibiting most of the companies to embark on a sustainability journey. Now, any experiences that how the loss of bottom line can be captured through future value realization, and how do we connect this would be useful actually to get some thoughts.
Thank you, Sam. I think, so where I live in San Francisco, so in part of Silicon Valley, we have seen so much more strides in terms of people having access to money. And without access to basic capital, you can't make yourself better by going to school, buying a car so you can get to work, buying a house so you have stability. So I think through all of those things, and it doesn't happen necessarily through what we traditionally call a fintech firm. We have banks that engage in fintech just simply by using the technology. So I think holistically, I would see it more as, in terms of each country, are normal people, without knowing why they're better off, are they better off? And it happens through financial inclusion and through access to money.
Sure, sure. So, Mr. Chowdary, if you were to crystal gaze and over the next 3 years, because today if the fintech market in India is about $50 billion, they say, and by 25 they believe it will triple to 150. How do you see government policies supporting it? Like government has obviously drawn in all these policies, or regulators have come in with this sustainability reporting and disclosures. Anything else you would want government to support in terms of promoting this?
Sam, government actually is a big catalyzer in what we are seeing the fintech startup industry to grow in India. See, in India, there were several millions of people, they were not having bank accounts. Now they have the bank accounts. Now, because of the digital infrastructure like Aadhaar and all that, this thing, a lot of startups are able to create very innovative solutions. Earlier, for example, if I go to any public sector bank or private sector bank for any loan, for that matter, they used to take minimum 6 months time. Again, they used to come, no, do you have any collateral, that too city-based collateral, all that issues, nonsensical issues used to be there. And people used to get frustrated. Today, many fintechs I have seen, within minutes, they'll find out whether I can loan this particular applicant this thing based on the CIBIL score, based on the data they've collected, based on the information publicly available. So they're able to, not only that, even the social media, they're seeing what is that he's spending, where he is, all that social media data also, they're able to crunch that data. Within minutes, they're able to find whether they can give that loan to me or not. And after that, I mean, they're immediately sending that money to education loans or agriculture loans. All that this thing is happening in a big time. I think whether the government or without the government, I see that a lot of startup companies, innovative startup companies, they are coming out with a lot of innovative ideas. They are going to serve the public at large, whether it's they are in a rural area, urban area, poor people or rich people. And because of the transactional time is getting reduced to few minutes, and a lot of people, they want to make sure that they avail those facilities. I think that is going to increase. And government in any way is increasing this kind of facilities, either RBI or even NPCI, which is a quasi-government this thing. They are coming out with a lot of new enablement and all that this thing. And I was told Nandan Nilekani is heading the ONDC. ONDC again is going to connect all the small shop people and their this complete supply chain mechanism, how they can sell directly, in, how they can compete with the big malls and all that. I think a lot of things are going to be happening in the country. I think with our kind of economies, with our kind of population, I think this fintech industry is going to grow much bigger. Lot of, I see many unicorns in fintech is going to happen in the country, Sam.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chowdary. And the last question to Seoyoung. There is also this, so if A, B, C, D of fintech, like I picked it up from Wikipedia, is A is about artificial intelligence, B is about blockchain, C is about cloud. So I'm saying there is also an issue where for cryptocurrencies, the kind of energy that you use, there is a doubt, right? So if the balance is not done. Similarly, because of artificial intelligence, if jobs are lost, so how do you see the balance getting into the industry?
No, that's a great question, Sam, and I know we're running low on time. I'll first address your question about crypto. So first and foremost, if you think about what Bitcoin represents, at its peak, it had over $1 trillion in market valuation without any sort of real infrastructure running it. I do not know of any bank that is worth more than $1 trillion without having lots of buildings across the world and having people drive into those buildings, have electricity supporting those buildings. So I'm not sure that the comparison is completely fair to say because of Bitcoin mining and the electricity that consumes, because Bitcoin doesn't have that kind of infrastructure that we require our worldwide international banks to have. Second, crypto is working very deeply and strongly on proof of stake based system. It's just that it's mathematically more complex to come up with a truly decentralized proof of stake based consensus mechanism. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be done. It's just that right now, the predominant proof of stake based systems, those guys are not truly decentralized if you look at the actual underlying protocol. Now, going back to actual sustainability, well, I see that, I'll stop there.
No, you please carry on. I think we can extend by a couple of minutes. It's okay.
Sure. So going back to sustainability, we have two different ways of looking at things. One is what Sam is touching on is CeFi versus DeFi. So we have CeFi, which is centralized finance, the banks that we trust in. Then we have DeFi. We have Bitcoin and Ethereum, which seem to be hugely energy intensive and bad for the environment, except for the fact that we're not really comparing apples to apples. We don't think about all of the energy that's consumed by all of the banks around the world that are providing that banking. And on top of that, what we didn't see, that what our actual trusted CeFi banks couldn't accomplish. Look at with Ukraine, when they said they are going to accept donations through crypto. That happened very quickly and very swiftly. That kind of financial inclusion is very important. I don't think anyone there really freaking cares about how much energy it took for that transaction to go through, because they got that money within an hour as opposed to 3 to 5 days under a SWIFT system. So I think we have to consider this all more holistically. And obviously I'm very passionate about it. I have 2 books on this now. I'm happy to chat more during reception or anything, but yes. Thank you, Sam.
No, thanks, Young, and we are on top of the hour, so let me just put out the closing summary. It was very insightful for me, at least, to get these examples going. What is heartening is we are all agreeing on the fact that from a 50 billion, it will go up to 150, which the government is, I think, forecasting. What we also see here is that, as you rightly said, as you bring in more people into the financial inclusion, while they will not be able to pinpoint one thing why they became better, but it is critical that once India becomes from a low income to a middle income, the kind of transformation that can happen in the country would be, and to be honest, this transformation can be a sustainable transformation. Instead of, as you said, the US and China way, we can still become more efficient, sustainable, and reach our goals. So with that, let me conclude this, and thank you both for your progressive views on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.